guys, welcome back to another CXC revision session. I'm your host, Ms. Bayekem. So today we will be reviewing the January 2020 CXC HSB past paper. Let us begin. So question 1. The ability of a living organism to detect and respond to changes in its environment is referred to as, so we have A, nutrition, B, excretion, C, irritability, D, movement. So the best option, as you would have seen, is definitely irritability, because it describes the ability for an organism to respond to stimulus, which is the change in its environment. Question 2. Items 2 to 3 refers to the following processes. So we have osmosis, diffusion, photosynthesis, and active transport. In answering items 2 to 3, each process may be used once, more than once, or not at all. So 2. Which process describes the spread of gases throughout a room? That is definitely diffusion. So this is definitely B. Let me make the answer brighter for us. B. Then for question 3, which process describes the absorption of water by plant root? So we have A, osmosis, B, diffusion, C, photosynthesis, D, active transport. The fact that they're talking about water, it has to be osmosis, which is A. Question 4. Item 4 refers to the following trophic pyramid. So we have carnivores at the top, then we have herbivores below, and producers at the bottom. So 4. Based on the trophic pyramid above, which of the following statements is not true? So we have A, the producers supply the most energy. That is true. B, the herbivore level provides less food than the producer level. As you can see, we have less herbivore than producer, so that is true. C, the amount of available energy decreases with each successive level, and we all know that to be true. D, the total mass of living organisms that can be supported at each higher level increases. So D is definitely not true. 5. Which cell organelle is responsible for respiration? We all know that this should definitely be the mitochondria, because the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. And remember, respiration end product is to give energy, to produce energy, and the mitochondria is the powerhouse. That is where the energy is found. That is where respiration, aerobic respiration, will happen. Question 6. Benedict solution and iodide solution are used to test for which of the following food nutrients? So for Benedict, it must be reducing sugars, and iodine must be testing for starch. So it's definitely A. Question 7. Diarrhea is often caused by bacteria and viruses present in the food that we eat. Which of the following actions would most likely increase the chances of our food being contaminated by bacteria? So we have A, storing food in the refrigerator. B, keeping raw meat and cooked meat apart. C, leaving food on the stove top until everyone has eaten. D, washing hands before and after using the toilet. So everything here speaks about preventing contamination except C. Question 8. Which of the following condition is a direct result of malnutrition? So we have A, obesity, B, asthma, C, diarrhea, D, depression. So because we're talking about malnutrition, it has to be obesity. 9. Which of the following micronutrients is essential for the development of red blood cells in infants? So we have iron, B, calcium, C, vitamin B, and D, phosphorus. So the best option here would have been iron, because they're talking about the development of red blood cells. Remember, we need iron. Hemoglobin is a very important iron, and if a person doesn't have enough iron, they'll become anemic. They'll have anemia, which would reduce their red blood cell count, and that's why iron is the best option here. Question 10. Which of the following substances has no nutritive value in a balanced diet? So it means that it adds no nutrition value. So we have fat, fiber, protein, carbohydrate. So the only thing here that doesn't really add any nutrition value is the fiber, because we know that the fiber helps our bowel movement, helps us to be fluid. Items 11. So items 11 refers to the following vertical section through a molar tooth. The actual question: which of the following rows shows the correct function of each of the parts labeled P, Q, and R? As usual, students, we always try to label. So we're looking at the tooth, and we know that P is the enamel. So it's the enamel. Well, this was supposed to be my EL struggles. So it's the enamel, while Q, students, is definitely the dentine. My N is so big, so it's definitely the dentine. And then R is gonna be the pulp cavity. R is the pulp cavity. So I'm gonna put pulp and you just do the rest. So now they're asking based on the function. So they have protection, nourishment, and shape. So we all know that the enamel is for protection. So P is for protection. So the only two that has P for protection is A and B. And for nourishment, it has to be where the nerves are, which is in the pulp cavity. So it's going to be PR, and then the dentine, which is Q, is responsible for the shape. So the best option in here would have been B. Question 12. Amino acids derived from proteins are an essential component of our diet because so we have A, provide much of our energy needs, B, are a good storage form for energy, C, are used in the building up of new cells, D, speed up the metabolic reaction in the body. So the best option is definitely C, because we know that amino acids, proteins, they help to build our body. Question 13. Item 13 refers to the following diagram of a part of the human digestive system. So we have X here would have been the stomach. The part labeled X is responsible for the digestion of, so in the stomach, the digestion of protein actually takes place. Then 14, the region of the alimentary canal that is acidic is definitely the stomach. And then 15, what is the function of the incisor in the digestion of food? So the incisor is the teeth that you find at the front of your mouth. So they are responsible, students, for cutting. Or you could say for biting, they're responsible for that. Item 16 refers to the following model, which illustrates the process of breathing. So it says, which shape in the breathing process is represented in the model? So looking at it, we have the tube Y, which is representing the trachea, we have the bell jar, which would represent the rib or the frame of the body. We have the balloon representing the lung, and the rubber or plastic sheet representing the diaphragm, which is under. So that we said that push up the handle, so you realize that the diaphragm is raised, it's dome shape, and you could see that the lungs are deflated. And the only time that the lungs are deflated is when we're having exhalation. So we're breathing out, we're exhaling. 17. Which of the following products best completes the equation for aerobic respiration? So we have glucose plus oxygen gives us carbon dioxide, water plus energy. This is an easy one, so the best option has to be B because that is the answer. This is a formula that we must know in our heads. And remember, sometimes energy gets represented as ATP. Question 18. Which of the following sequences show the path taken by air moving into the lungs? So we have A, trachea, bronchioles, bronchi, then alveoli. B, trachea, alveoli, bronchioles, and bronchi. C, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli. And then D, trachea, bronchi, alveoli, and bronchioles. So the best option is C. With a question like this, students, if you don't remember, you can always go back to the diagram at the top. If you remember, they gave us one. So this is the trachea. From the trachea, it would go to the bronchi. From the bronchi to the bronchioles, and then the alveoli, which is in the lungs. So that's why it's C. Question 19. Pulmonary circulation involves the passage of blood from the, so we have A, lungs to the heart, B, heart to the lungs and back, and then C, lower parts of the body to the heart, D, the heart to the rest of the body, and we have it excluding the lungs. So the best option here would have been B as in boy. Question 20. The vital capacity of a healthy person is approximately 3.5 dm cube. Which of the following persons will most likely have a vital capacity less than 3.5 dm cube? So we have A, a 30-year-old female marathon runner. No. B, a 30-year-old female smoking for 10 years. C, a 60-year-old male saxophone player of 10 years. D, a 60-year-old male who walks up 2 kilometers daily. So the best option is this one, which is B, a 30-year-old female smoking for 10 years. Because guess what? Smoking will decrease your vital capacity. If you realize A, the marathon runner, this person may have an increased vital capacity. The person, the 60-year-old playing a saxophone, increased vital capacity because they have to develop a strong breathing to play that instrument. And then D, a man who walks 2 kilometers daily. This man is exercising. So the only person who is not exercising, who is not expanding their vital capacity, is definitely B. 21. High blood pressure most likely leads to, so we have A, lung damage, B, liver damage, C, smoke ulcers, D, cardiac problems. So the best option here is cardiac problems, since we're talking about blood pressure. And when we're talking about cardiac, we mean heart problems, students. 22. Items 22 refers to the following chart. So we have a chart. As usual, move on to the question to see what they're asking you. Which of the following labels correctly identify the plasma? So we're looking for the plasma. So we have blood, then it's divided into solid, and then we have liquid. Then we have IV, and then the solid has I, 2, and 3. So the best option would have been under the liquid side because plasma is mainly liquid. Question 23. When there is bleeding from a cut through a person's skin, blood clots are formed when platelets become entangled in. So we have A, the dermis of the skin, B, fibrin in the blood vessels, C, hair erector muscles of the skin, D, white blood cells in the blood vessels. So for this one, the best option would have been with fibrin in the blood vessels because we're talking about blood clotting, and we're talking about the platelets, and with blood clotting, the fibrin helps to clot the blood. So moving on to question 24. Items 24 refers to the following diagram which shows a typical long bone. So we have the long bone. As usual, we move to the question. Which of the labeled structure contains marrow? So we have I, which is going to be the ball of the bone. Then we have 2, which is going to be the cartilage. So I'm going to put B for ball, C for cartilage. And 3 is going to be the yellow bone marrow. So yellow bone marrow. And then 4 is looking like the articular cartilage. So I'm going to put A at the end because it's at the bottom. So the best option would have definitely been the yellow bone marrow. Hence, it has bone marrow in its name. If you did not figure that out, that's why that is the best option, because that's where the bone marrow would have been. 25. Which of the following structures allow substances to pass through its wall? So we have A, vein, B, artery, C, arteriole, D, capillary. The best option is the capillary, being that they're 1 unit thick, one cell thick. They are pretty small and they facilitate exchange. They facilitate gaseous exchange. The walls of the veins and the arteries, they are too big for that. And it's the same thing with the arterioles, even though they are smaller arteries. Their walls are still too thick to allow exchange or to allow substances to pass through. So the best option here would have been the capillary. So 26. Which pair of bones is found in the lower arm? So we have A, the tibia and the fibula. Then we have B, the radius and the ulna. Then we have C, the clavicle and the scapula. Then D, the humerus and the scapula. So now, students, with this one, we can eliminate the tibia and the fibula is in the lower body, the lower region, which is in the leg, in the lower region. So it's in the foot area, rather, the tibia and the fibula. Then the radius and the ulna would have been the best option. They're in the lower region of the hand, or the lower region of the arm, like they ask. So B would have been our best option. If you're not sure, you can always eliminate the clavicle and the scapula are in the upper region of the shoulder. And then D, the humerus and the scapula. The humerus is the upper part of the arm, and then the scapula would have been in the shoulder region. So the best option would have been definitely B. Question 27. A ball and socket joint is located. So we have A at the elbow, B between the wrist bones, C between the skull and the neck, and we have D where the arm meets the shoulder. Because we're talking about ball and socket, which allow movement, so they allow universal movement in all planes, it has to be where the arm meets the shoulder. So it has to be D, because we can allow movement in all directions within a circle. Question 28. So for 28, go up a little. Items 28 refers to the following diagram, which shows the forelimb during extension. Then it asks, the point of origin of the tricep is located at, so we're talking about the tricep. So we're trying to find the points of origin. So looking at it, let us go down to see. So the point of origin has to be at the top where we have I. So the option is I. The point of origin is I. And then the point or the tendons of insertion would have been 2. If they asked that one, it would have been 2. On the inside, let me raise this and make it a little better. So it would have been 2. And just to help you, so this is it. So we have the origin at the top, still on the tricep, insertion at the bottom where we have the tendons, almost where we have the elbow joint. Look at it, the tendons here, tendons there, insertion at the bottom, origin at the top. Question 29. The form of energy measured in calories that warm up the body is referred to as, so we have A, heat energy, or heat rather, B, temperature, C, heat capacity, D, chemical energy. So the best option here, students, would have been A, heat energy. Temperature is out of it because temperature is not measured in calories. The same thing for heat capacity is not measured in calories either, nor is chemical energy. But because the measurement of heat is done in calorie, then that is why we chose that answer. And 1 calorie is the amount of energy required to raise 1 gram of water to 1 degree Celsius. So this would have been the best option. So, and 30, which of the following metabolic products of human body is toxic? So we have A, bile, B, urea, C, water, D, glucose. The best option here would have been urea because urea is definitely a toxic waste product. So we're at the end of another review session, and I'll see you next time when we review part 2 of the CXC HSB 2020 past paper. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.